Chapter 12 on development. This is probably the longest chapter in the textbook because it goes from prenatal development before you are born until the time you die. So we're talking about the entire lifespan of development, and we'll discuss social development, cognitive development, um, physical development in each section of this chapter. So we'll talk about prenatal, then we'll talk about infancy, then we'll talk about childhood, then adolescence, then adulthood. So there are 5 modules within this chapter. So it's going to be quite a bit. But again, we break them down by module, so that may help a little bit with that. So let's start out with module 35. And this is nature versus nurture, the enduring developmental issue that occurs, right? So the one question that we're going to answer in this module is, how is it that psychologists study the degree to which development is an interaction of heredity and environmental factors? So it's not just nature or nurture, but it's nature and nurture. That's what we're going to talk about in this module. So let's start out looking at what the nature-nurture issue is. When we discuss nature-nurture, we're talking about the issue to which the degree of the environment and heredity influence our behavior. So is it that you behave the way you do because that's the way that you were raised? So that would be the nurture part. Or is it you behave the way you do because that's what your genes are, right? That would be the nature part. When we look at developmental psychology, it is a branch of psychology that studies the patterns of growth and changes that occur throughout a person's lifetime. So again, we go through cognitive changes, we go through behavioral changes, we go through social changes, we go through physiological changes. There's a lot of different changes that occur in each stage of your lifetime. These are influenced by behavioral geneticists, and behavioral geneticists are those individuals who study the effects of heredity on behavior, and then also the theories of evolutionary psychologists. So this is taken from this figure you can find at the top of page 374 in your textbook, and we're looking at the various characteristics that are influenced significantly by genetic factors. And it says, although these characteristics have strong genetic components, they are also affected by your environment. So the physical characteristics, genetic factors, height, weight, obesity, tone of voice, so on and so forth. Whenever it comes to your intellectual characteristics, memory, intelligence, age of language acquisition when you learned how to talk, reading disabilities, or intellectual disabilities. And then the third set of characteristics are the emotional characteristics and disorders. Shyness, extroversion, emotionality, neuroticism, schizophrenia, anxiety, and alcoholism. So these characteristics are influenced significantly by genetics. However, they are also affected by the environment in which you are raised. The next thing to discuss is determining the relative influence of nature and nurture. Developmental psychologists use several different approaches in order to determine the influence of nature and nurture. One of those approaches is to observe animals, so non-human animals. We observe animals with identical genetic backgrounds in various environments. So they have the same genetics, but they are raised apart. Researchers must be careful when they're generalizing the findings to a human population. Again, a lot of times we use animal models in our research when it's not possible to use humans in our research. But you have to be really careful about assimilating what you found in the animal model to whether or not that would be exactly the case with a human model. However, these findings do provide important information that cannot ethically be obtained from human participants. And so when it's not ethical to do the research on humans, you can ethically do it on animals. And that's why we use animal models in our research. One of the things that we look at with human research is identical twins. And these are twins who are genetically identical. They have the exact same genetics. The source of the information then about the relative effects of genetics and environmental factors. This is how we look at whether it is nature or nurture. We look at identical twins. Now, the way that we conduct developmental research is we have two different ways that we can look at research whenever we're doing it on developmental capabilities or developmental changes. One is through what is called a cross-sectional research. This is a research method that compares people of different ages at the same point in time. So this assesses the differences among groups of people. So you may take a study looking at people of different ages, but at this very moment and what occurred for them. We can also do what is known as a longitudinal type of research. And this is a research method that investigates behavior as a participant ages. So you're going to look at one individual or a very small group of individuals, kind of like a case study, and you're going to see what changes they go through as they grow up. So this assesses their change in behavior over time.